everyone, Alec Alger the SideQuest Gamer here, and I have a question for you guys. Did you ever have that one game that you always want to play in the back of your mind, and you even had a chance to get it, but for some reason just missed out on it? Well, today I'm going to review that one game for me, and that is Spyro the Dragon for the PlayStation.
Spyro the Dragon was released for the PlayStation console in 1998 and was published by Sony and developed by Insomniac, who are best known as the developers of the slightly oversaturated Ratchet and Clank games.
Oh, come on. That franchise has like 6 main games and heaven knows how many spin-offs. I didn't say they were bad games, they're really good games in fact, but come on, how is it not oversaturated?
The game began development in 1997 and used a 3D panoramic engine developed by Alex Hastings, which was later used in other PlayStation games. The idea of having a dragon be the protagonist of this true 3D game is credited to Craig Stitt. Interestingly enough, Spyro was originally going to be green, but developers thought purple would be better suited so he doesn't blend in with the grass. I'm not sure if it was a color palette issue, but I can see why that would be problematic. When I was a kid, I first played this game on a demo on my copy of Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped, and I have to say that although I loved the demo, it wasn't enough for me to give my dad $10 to buy it off of eBay for me, since I did not have an eBay account nor a credit card. I mean, I was 12 years old at the time. I regret not playing it sooner, but I finally got my hands on the game and beat it with 101% completion. The story, like many other collectathons in its time, isn't deep and doesn't take itself seriously. Basically, the Elder Dragons are imprisoned in ice after the antagonist, Nasty Nork, who is a hybrid of a gnome and an orc, is angry at all the dragons after being called ugly. And because Spyro is a kid, he is not frozen for some reason, and goes out to rescue all of the Elder Dragons.
Look, I know the story is silly, but hey, at least there's no damsel in distress in this game, since all the frozen dragons are male dragons. So, 5 points for originality, Insomniac.
The gameplay follows a hit point system like in Crash Bandicoot, where if Spyro is hit 3 or 4 times, he will die. The dragonfly known as Sparks, who follows you around, acts as a health bar and changes color depending on how many hit points you have left. When Sparks is golden, your health is full, but if he loses color, you better find some butterflies for Sparks to eat, which can be found by defeating defenseless animals like sheep and frogs.
And PETA, if you dare go after Spyro and Insomniac for that, I will buy a fur coat every year for the rest of my life to prove a point.
But if you die, there are many lives scattered throughout this game, along with a very convenient checkpoint system activated by talking to dragon statues. And as long as you save frequently, all the treasure you collected will still be in your possession, unlike Super Mario 64, where if you lose a life while collecting 100 coins, you have to do that all over again. But as a result, this game is a bit on the easy side and can be beaten 100% in less than 10 hours. There's only 6 worlds in the game, and each containing 3 main levels, a boss level, and a flying stage. Except for the 6th world, there's just 2 main levels and a boss level in that world. Then if you collect everything in the game, the 4th level opens in that world, which is a hybrid of a flying stage and a main level. The main levels are basically giant 3D worlds with treasure and enemies scattered about. Some enemies can even alter the ground of the level, but enemies either have to be burned or bashed into. There's really no strategy to them. Although some enemies like the armored spiders and ghost knights require the flame fairy's temporary, more powerful flame breath. I have to admit that the bosses in this game are pretty pathetic. In fact, on my first playthrough, I didn't even know some of them were bosses. Dr. Shemp is the only boss in the game that can actually somewhat hold his own, but he's also pretty easy. But all of the others just get behind normal enemies and fire things at you that can easily be dodged. So it's like burn, run away, catch up, burn again, defeat the boss. The giant robot metalhead also feels like a legitimate boss battle himself, but he's also pretty easy to defeat. The flying stages are pretty fun, for the most part, and have you fly around the level going through rings, destroying treasure chests, and taking out enemy vehicles, though some of these stages require precision, good timing, and memorization, which can get really annoying, especially while flight from the fourth world. I hate that level so much. But the gameplay is flawless nonetheless, and it's still a lot of fun to play, but as you progress, the level objectives do not change, and I'm sorry to say is a bit repetitive, especially since some of these levels are very big but don't have a lot for you to do other than collect treasure laying about. The game does overstay its welcome by the time you reach the fifth world as a result.
Oh, come on, that's twice already. Look, it's still a fun game nonetheless.
I have to say that this game kind of reminds me of Super Mario 64 for its worlds and Banjo-Kazooie for its heavy emphasis on collecting things and nothing else. But it's by no means a rip-off of any of those games, since it's pretty much its own thing and takes more inspiration off of Super Mario 64, since Banjo-Kazooie was only released in June of 1998, which is 2 months before Spyro the Dragon's release date, and they both were developed at the same time, so they would have no idea what the other was doing. Although it has a lot in common with those games, the collectathon aspect, where you have to collect a certain amount of things as a mean of progressing to other levels. Hence the name Collectathon. In this collectathon game, you have to rescue a certain number of dragons, recover a certain number of dragon eggs from those annoying egg thieves, or collect a number of gems scattered throughout each level. And the gems you especially want to collect. Like in Banjo-Kazooie or Super Mario 64, collecting everything in a level is not a requirement, which is helpful because some of these levels have some pretty well hidden gems and some hard to reach egg thieves. Each level in Spyro the Dragon can be beaten in under 20 minutes to 45 minutes on your first playthrough, and like I said, they're really spacious but pretty easy, and the enemies really don't put up much of a fight, so you should have an easy time. The controls are well implemented for the most part, where you press X to jump and hold X to glide. You can either use the analog stick or the directional pad to move Spyro around, and the circle button to fire. Hold the square button to charge, which is helpful in defeating armored enemies and getting speed boosts for jumps. Although, dashing is pretty hard to control with the wacky automatic camera, but that's just a minor nitpick. Like I said, the automatic camera is not always ideal, but luckily you can move the camera around with the L1 and R1 buttons in all directions. You can even look around with the triangle button to check for hidden areas with gems or keys. Now as for the graphics, they were good for its time, but to quote my friend Justin Teeter from our YouTube series, The Film Strip Arcade, the character animations are very rubbery, and I couldn't say that any better myself. I mean, Spyro himself has the most stable character animations, but he and the other dragons have eyebrows that go all over the place, which is actually somewhat amusing, and I honestly wouldn't have it any other way. Just because it shows its age doesn't mean it should be corrected for HD remakes or whatever, but kept to show the evolution of the entire Spyro series. I have to say that the sound is pretty good for the most part. The music is rather mundane and definitely not download worthy, but it's worth noting that it was composed and performed by Stuart Copeland, the former drummer of the classic rock band The Police. The music is not bad, but it's decent for the most part, and fits the themes of the levels pretty well. Stuart Copeland also does the music for later installments in the Spyro series, up to Enter the Dragonfly, and it does get progressively better. Now let's talk about the voice acting. The voice acting is very cartoony, which is appropriate since Spyro is voiced by Carlos Alazraqui, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, who is an active voice actor who appeared in nearly every cartoon since the 90s, who is well known for voicing Rocco from Nickelodeon's Rocco's Modern Life, as well as the owner of Happy Go Lucky Toy Factory from the Family Guy cartoon. Clancy Brown also provides additional voices in the game. If you don't know who he is, he voiced Dr. Neo Cortex in Crash Bandicoot 2, 3, and beyond, Baron Praxis from Jak 2, and he's somewhat famous for his live-action role as the ruthless Captain Brian Haley from The Shawshank Redemption. There are quite a few other voice actors in this game that you would recognize, but there's just too many to list and I want to move on. So in conclusion, Spyro the Dragon does show its age graphically and in level design, but it's nonetheless a great game for the PlayStation, and I would give it an 83 out of 100. It's a great start to a formerly great franchise, and definitely my third favorite Spyro game in the series.
Thank you guys so much for watching my review of Spyro the Dragon for the PlayStation. Now, if you want to play it for yourself, it's available on the PlayStation Store for around 8 to 10 American dollars, which is a pretty good deal and well worthy of that price. Now, I'll get to the superior sequel sometime soon, but there are other games I want to review to coincide with the American holiday Thanksgiving. Comment question! This is an odd question, but what is your favorite flying level from any Spyro game? Please reply in the comments section below. And without further ado, have a great day and remember to stay awesome!